Independence and Hardship by Bryant Beach. The beginning of my adult life began shortly after my 18th birthday. I was basically moved in with my girlfriend and her grandmother and had no job, car, or skills to speak of. I was attending college at USC and was struggling to stay afloat in my classes. After flunking out of my first semester of engineering college, I decided maybe college was not the path for me. Shortly after dropping out of college, my girlfriend's grandmother approached us and said, "You two do nothing around this house, and I'm tired of cleaning up after you ungrateful kids. You have till the end of the week to find somewhere else to live." I felt like my life was a stack of wood and had just been set ablaze with gasoline. Once the shock wore off, I knew that I would have to step up and find a job and a place to live. My buddy got me a job working with him at a restaurant in Lexington called Libby's. It was a less than desirable job, dishwashing, but it paid enough so that Hannah and I could split the rent on a shoebox of a duplex out in Pillion. The place was 700 square feet. The kitchen was barely fit for a mouse, and our bedroom was reminiscent of Harry Potter's cupboard. The living room was roughly the same size as the bedroom, and for a long time was barren of furniture. Making ends meet was like trying to bucket water out of a sinking ship. My portion of the rent was a fourth of my monthly paycheck, and by the time I paid utilities and my phone bill, I barely had anything left. When we moved into the duplex, I was 220 pounds. By the time I had quit Libby's, I was 140 because I could not afford to eat. Struggling like this and not being able to afford anything and barely being able to buy groceries, along with the fact that I had just dropped out of college and had to live in what, to me, equated to a hole in the ground, really drove my self-confidence into the ground. I was depressed and felt worthless. Work did not help in that aspect. Working at Libby's was like pulling teeth. In fact, I'd rather pull out my own teeth than work there. In simpler terms, I hated my job. It was by far the worst job I've ever had, and the people that worked there only cared about getting drunk or high. After about a year and a half of working as a dishwasher, I became tired of the environment and poor treatment I received at the hands of the Libby's management. After one particularly bad day, the owner told me, "I don't need you, you need me. And if you don't like working here, leave." I am, of course, censoring some of the more vulgar remarks he made, but that same shift, I went out to the back of the restaurant and began looking for jobs, and I was lucky to find an opening at the Bilo right down the road. I went in for an interview and was hired on the spot. I was hired on as a meat department associate. I learned most of what there was to be a meat cutter and was going to obtain my apprenticeship. At Bilo, I always felt more appreciated and was treated like an actual person. I was recognized for having a high learning curve and was always going beyond my employer's expectations. I received a higher pay from day one, and after 3 months, I was given a $1 raise. It was nice to be surrounded by people who actually cared about the quality of their work and did not come to work drunk or inebriated by other means. I made friends at Bilo that I still talk to and go see occasionally if I'm in the area. It was also during this time at Bilo that my girlfriend and I got married. Things were looking up. Unfortunately, as much as I enjoyed Bilo, my bills were still stacking up. Hannah and I at this point had taken on a roommate to help with the bills. She was one of Hannah's friends, and with Hannah attending school full-time, she could not work as often, which meant less money coming into the household. One day I was discussing my problems with David Fulmer, one of my coworkers. I said, "David, my car payment's $100, and with insurance it's $200. My rent's $405, electric's about $200, and my phone's $80. That's $985. I only make $1,200 a month. That leaves me with about $200 a month to deal with groceries, emergencies, and other unforeseen costs. I can't keep living like this." After I explained to him my situation, he looked at me and told me I should come work for him at the fire department. I knew David was a chief in the department, but never fathomed the possibility of being a fireman. At first, I was not keen on the idea of being a fireman. It's dangerous, strenuous, and they work odd hours. I was also unsure if I could physically even do the job, being an asthmatic and never having been an athletic person. However, when David told me I'd be making about $34,000 a year, more than double my current salary, I couldn't say no. In April of 2018, I entered recruit school. a 16-week program designed to be like firefighter boot camp. This was the most intense 16 weeks of my life. We had several textbooks we were expected to study, and on days that we were not doing schoolwork, we were outside 8 hours a day in the South Carolina summer, dressed from head to toe in bunker gear, practicing routine firefighting operations. Bunker gear weighs almost 100 pounds and can cause dehydration and fatigue very quickly. The compounding of physical and mental work was enough to drive someone into the ground. Although conditions were grueling, I pushed through because of the friends I made. Honestly, they were more like family. They helped me push past my limits and achieved what I thought never possible. After 16 weeks of hell, I was at the eve of my graduation. This was the culmination of all my hard work, and I've never been prouder of myself. I was finally a Lexington County firefighter. Because of this job, I was able to start buying proper groceries, start a savings account, and stop worrying about making it to my next paycheck. My confidence was through the roof because I knew that I had just accomplished something that many people couldn't and something I genuinely thought that I couldn't do. I now had health care and was able to seek help for the depression that had a stranglehold on my life to this point. Most of all, because of this job, I was able to get out of that tiny shack I was living in and buy my wife and I a proper house. We moved into our home on August 30th of 2018, and since then, my wife has begun her job as a paralegal and is planning on attending law school at USC, and I have decided to go back to school as well. I would like to obtain my business degree, and ultimately, I want to open my own restaurant. It has been a long and winding road to get to where I am now, and I know there's still much more to come. But I've made it this far, and I will not give up now.